Hi. There's already 7 people here. Sweet. So, good evening. And I'm also managing the chat, just in case you write. Last week, Muriel was managing it. And so, just to let you know, in case you feel like there's a delay in it or something like that. So, good evening. Et puis, peut-être vous pouvez me laisser savoir dans le chat s'il y a des personnes qui sont francophones, any French speakers. Because I could then just add some words here and there in French, although for the most part, this is an English gathering. Alors, en français, juste comme ça, je pourrais ajouter des mots en français ici et là, mais pour la plupart de ces cours, c'est en anglais. Véronique. Okay. Thanks, Véronique. So Véronique said she speaks French, but English is also fine. Okay. Well, we'll get started. And so we're together for the next 45 minutes, so until 8:15 Eastern Time. What I thought we can do together this evening is to go over or to practice together. And then after that, we could, or there's time for any discussion or questions, and then I can comment on them. You can add the questions in the chat box, but maybe for now, just as a way for me to know who's out there, you can say your name or not, but just maybe say hi. Hi, Suzanne. So Suzanne and Véronique, and maybe where you're calling from, and then I'll just read them out. And I'm right now calling in from Montreal, and for those of you who are in Montreal, from the Mile End. Hi, Bibiana. So Bibiana is one of our staff at True North Insight. Oh, nice to see you join here. S. Binder, hi from Mile End. Yay. Helena. Oh, you're in the US. Where in the US, Helena? And for those of you who are just joining, basically it's just we're popping into the chat saying hi and where we're from. Okay, from St. Louis, Missouri. I had another call this morning for another organization, and I spoke with someone from Missouri today too. And so we'll start our practice in about a minute. And so feel free to continue popping in, saying where you're from. The one thing I would ask from Montreal North, Suzanne, the one thing that I would ask is that you don't converse with each other. It's a little harder on the YouTube platform, but just in case you wanted to, so that at least for the meditation portion, we can really keep it to being mindful of why we're here. So as I mentioned, Suzanne from Montreal North, Hélène from Montreal. Oh, and Helena's daughter just finished at McGill and is still in Montreal. Sweet. Okay. So perhaps some of you saw the topic for tonight's meditation and short talk, like Dharmet is often what we call it, mostly because I want to leave room for you to be able to check in and ask questions. But basically, as I'm checking in with a lot of students all online, there's a lot of similar themes arising. One is anxiety. Another is fear. And Marie-Sylvie, hello, Dawn from Montreal. Sweet. Nice. Bienvenue, Sylvie. And so fear is like any other emotion. It is valid, it is necessary, it is a healthy one, I would say. The only time I would describe any emotions as unhealthy is when it's more our reaction or how we deal with the emotions that are unhealthy, not the emotion itself. So basically, actually serve us. But fear, like many other types of emotions like anger or grief or sadness, they all have a purpose. And so fear's purpose helps us stay safe when there's danger. We cultivated this ability of fearfulness or to have fear when we were from our ancestors. Back then, though, it was because we were running away from a lion or something like that in the savannah. And although we are not as endangered in that way anymore, we still have valid reasons to be fearful. Our current situation, our pandemic, is one of those reasons. And so fear helps us to stay safe when there's danger. And in our particular situation, it keeps us cautious about touching people, about touching our face. It reminds us to wash our hands frequently and to take other care, like washing our clothes or doorknobs, surfaces, etc. Basically, basic health procedures, especially given our pandemic right now. And in other words, fear is our ally for survival, as long as we don't let it take over. So that's the little disclaimer. There's some with emotions, sometimes I like to illustrate it in this way where emotions are like children and you're driving a car. The emotions are welcome in the car ride, but you don't want the emotions to be driving, or you don't want the kids to be driving. At the same time, you don't want the kids to be stuffed in the trunk either. And so how can we let them in on the ride but not take over is the challenge or the practice. And our fear is healthy, just like how gratitude is a healthy emotion or happiness. The difference between them is that some are pleasant and some are unpleasant. And our human tendency is that we make those that are unpleasant wrong for some reason, or bad. And then those that are pleasant, we think that they're good and that that's how things, quote unquote, should be. So our fear, like all emotions, is healthy. But what is challenging, or where the practice really comes in, is how we respond to the fear. That's what really matters. Ruth King, a teacher that I adore based in, I believe it's Virginia, she says, suffering demands our attention and what we do next matters. And I like to think of that in the same way in regards to fear. Fear is certainly grabbing our attention right now, these days, for a lot of us. And so what we do next is what matters. And the best way that I know how to deal with fear is to make space for it or to become friends with it. There's another saying that says, if you resist it, it'll persist. And not just fear, but a lot of other emotions as well. And the reason for that is because aversion has the tendency to make that which is unhelpful or challenging, like fear, stronger. And so, in other words, in order to find ease in the midst of fear, it means moving towards or becoming friends with or allowing space for. But it doesn't mean we have to like it. So that's just a common misunderstanding. And also to pay attention to this tendency that once we know that, say, being mindful of fear helps to ease it, that there's this subtle strategy that kicks in, which is something like, I will be with my fear in order for it to go away. That in order to, or that small condition you place on it or on your process, is aversion, just arising under the guise of wisdom. And so sometimes I hear students say that they're disappointed because their fear or anxiety isn't going away, but it's actually because you're being with it in order for it to go away. So I'm not sure if that makes sense, but basically, a common formula is this: when we are mindful of something that is helpful or wholesome, let's say moments of gratitude or of ease, even though we're living through something quite challenging as a society, as a world right now, if you're aware of those moments of ease, then you're encouraging ease to get stronger and to arise more frequently. So mindfulness makes things that are wholesome stronger. Aversion does the opposite. So, as I just mentioned, when we are avoiding or aversive to something that is unwholesome, like fear or anxiety or unhelpful, when we want to avoid it, we actually make that which we're trying to avoid stronger. But when we're mindful of the aversion, that's what helps to make it less strong over time. So it doesn't happen necessarily like that. It could be a slow process. And so, just in a minute, we'll start practicing. And the one thing that I would invite you to do mostly is to try to be kind to yourself, kind to the fear if it is present, kind to um, your mind wandering. Even if, say, your natural tendency is to yank the mind or attention back to the present moment, I feel like in this day and age, right now, what the world needs is kindness and support. And so, why not have that start in your own practice so that it becomes more accessible when you're in relationship to others, even if it's by computer technology, or if you're crammed in a small living space with your whole family, or whatever your situation might be. So, for the duration of the meditation, you don't need access to the video. So, if you want to lie down or stand, you can just have access to the audio somehow, just so that when you can hear me ring the bell. Settle yourself into a comfortable position. And your eyes can be open or closed. Really, whatever helps you bring more ease into the body. Take a few deep breaths to help you arrive, feeling the effects of each exhale. Invite the body to relax. And you can do that from scanning the body with broad strokes from head to toe, or by silently repeating to yourself a few times, "May I relax. May this body relax." As you rest here, become aware of your body. Begin with the outer body, feeling your extremities like your fingers and your toes, your hands and your feet. How your body is resting in its position in the chair or on the ground. How the air feels on your face, on your body. Slowly bring your awareness to your breathing, following each breath in and each breath out. In and out. If possible, slow your breath down and pay attention to your body as you do so. Next, bring your awareness to the center of your body. That can be the heart area, the abdominal area, or somewhere else that is easeful or feels accessible in the torso area, shoulder perhaps, chest. And if you like, you can place one hand to that part of the body. And as you tune into the body in this way, ask yourself what feels alive for you right now? What feels inspiring? What is asking for you to take action? Or what is forward moving in your life? Sense how it feels to be with that forward aliveness or that inspiration, if it is present inside your body. And it doesn't need to be grandiose, just sincere, or what feels true for you right now. When it feels right, or if it feels right, begin to sense into any fear that might be present inside. Perhaps it's manifesting as anxiety right now, restlessness, or agitation. Imagine this fear as a friend in need. Greet your fear as if it's a friend, because fear, like any emotion, has a job to do, and its job is to keep you safe. Take the time to sense what it's wanting from you right now. What is it asking for? Does anything happen to your body when you take time to greet fear as a friend? And it doesn't have to be positive or pleasant, just tuning in or noticing. Thank your fear for protecting you, if it feels appropriate. Now, slowly bring your attention back to your body, feeling it supported by your chair, the ground, cushions, whatever you're using. Bring your attention back to the room. Noticing the temperature of the room, the air, sounds and movements. When you're ready, you can blink your eyes open. And if bowing is part of your practice, you can bow. And just before I open it up to you for questions or comments, one thing I do want to say is that becoming aware or befriending our fear in this way and asking it what it needs, I think is an important conversation we can start having with our body. I believe that our body communicates to us through sensations and emotions. And if you feel like it's hard for you to tune into emotions, I think that's really normal and a current challenge for a lot of us. And think of it as you're learning a new language and tuning into your emotions and asking what it wants from you, what it needs, is a way to start cultivating this emotional fluency. And then from there, it's a doorway into becoming more compassionate to yourself or for yourself. And then from there, that compassion for self opens you up to be compassionate for others in a way that doesn't burn you out. And then when you add that, tuning into what inspires you, what might be calling for action, whether it's on a big scale or an individual scale, like something that you need to do for yourself that you've been putting off, a family member, a neighbor, then that drive or that movement forward is supported by this compassion for yourself and others. So it acts almost in some ways, the image that's coming to mind for me is like a safety net, and it's holding you basically as you move forward or as you act in the world. And pardon for any background noise. I live with my partner, and we have no closed rooms, and so we're very close. Our only door is for the bathroom, and we're very close to forcing the other to do their calls in the bathroom. But anyways, so just a little time check. We have about 15 minutes. If you have any questions or comments, something to check in about, and then I might have some questions for you too. And you can pop them into the chat. And so I'm keeping an eye on it for now. And or actually, one of the questions that if you want, you can add in there relates to what I was guiding. So maybe you were present for it, maybe not. But basically, what I had guided, I'm looking at my notes here, is were you able to tune into your fear? Were you able to tune into it in a friendly way? So the answers could be no. Um, were you able to sense what it wants or needs from you? Let me think if there's anything else. Yeah, maybe that's all for now. Oh, and maybe actually this, um, did you notice any sensations in the body when or if you were able to greet your fear as a friend? So you can answer any of those questions in the chat, or if you have another question or comment. It's hard for me to tell if I should wait longer, if someone's writing. Yeah, so it doesn't seem like there's a question. If there is, I will address it. But maybe, yeah, let me know. Um, were you able to tune into your fear? Yes or no? Sometimes these these meditations that are focused on emotions are meant to be, are certainly tools, but sometimes they're hard to practice with because sometimes it's like, be with your fear, but in this moment, there may not have been fear. And so I'm curious to hear from you. Did anyone feel like there was fear and were you able to tune into it? It could be no, it could be yes. So, Véronique says, j'ai été contente de m'approcher de la peur parce que j'ai réalisé que peut-être je ne l'écoute pas assez. That's a great comment. So, Véronique said that she was happy that she was able to move towards her fear because she realized that or she's thinking that she might not actually listen to it enough. And I think that that's normal, mostly because fear is unpleasant and the human tendency based on protective conditioning that we've developed over millennia is that when something's unpleasant, we move away from it. And so that is helpful to some extent, but sometimes when things go unaddressed for so long, they actually perpetuate and get stronger. Mhm. And so I don't know if this was the case for you, Veronique, but sometimes listening to it isn't scary as scary as we might think the actual fear is. And so Elena says, Merci mille fois for this. So thank you 1,000 times for this. Greeting my fear anxiety as a friend is challenging, but I'm so appreciative of the construct you provided. My body reacted with a huge amount of tension at first. Yeah. And so that's also normal because we're so used to turning away from it that suddenly, when we're trying to practice this new habit of turning towards, the body's like, whoa, 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 wait, wait, no, this is not part of my protection repertoire. Why am I moving towards it? And so it's normal that the whole body puts its brakes on and then tenses up. And so the idea in that case is to not necessarily force yourself because forcing will actually, or sometimes makes the body more tense for longer. But think of it like a dance. And this actual technique is called titration. And so you move towards the fear, you try to stay in that fear. And then if the body reacts quite strongly, you move away and you go to something neutral like the breath or sound. And then when you feel resourced or the system eased, then you move towards the fear again and back out. So you move towards and away. And the idea is that every time you move towards, you're cultivating a certain resilience. Maybe you're staying with the fear a little longer or getting a little bit more intimate with the fear. So, yeah, something like that. So thank you, Elena. And so Esbindra, I don't know your first name, but what if your fear is counterproductive, like fear of intimacy? I think that's a great comment or comment question, pardon. And so I think moving towards your fear will actually help untangle that. Because I think it's not tuning into your fear and just letting it kind of drive the show like the kids driving the car. That's when it can be problematic or unhelpful or start solidifying into this habit or pattern. And so I think both moving towards it and seeing what arises, whether it's old storylines or false beliefs, combined with, I personally love combining my practice with therapy, but not everyone has access to that. But if you are able to also combine that with therapy, I think that could be helpful to unpack with another party, maybe sometimes even journaling as well. But I think certainly moving towards it will make it less scary. I'm not sure if it is scary for you, but make it less scary. And it would also help you see it more clearly for what it is. And so it could be just this false belief that was created as a strategy when you're a young child or whatever it might be. And then you might see it like that it's your inner child expressing itself through the sphere of intimacy. And so in a lot of ways, it's like asking your body, your fear, what does it want from you? That could be also a way to untangle it as well. So thanks for that. Marie-Sylvie says, tonight the practice brought her more into the sensations of the body. So no into fear. And that's totally fine. I like to think of all these, how we can meet all of these emotions and even thoughts in the same way, where a lot of our emotions arise based on thoughts. And sometimes if we don't catch it soon enough, we get lost in the content of the thought. Like, for example, let's say it's anger. What might happen is we get caught in the discussion, in a difficult discussion, like I should have said this, they shouldn't have said that, or whatever it might be. But even though it's anger arising in this moment that is in relation to a thought, we want to try to be with it as a present moment experience, because even if that discussion happened in the past, it's arising right now as a thought and emotion. And so, no, you didn't access fear, which is fine, but you were staying in the at the level of sensations in your body. And for me, that is part of the language of the body, emotions and sensations. So, as much as possible, I try to encourage people to drop into the body when practicing, because I think it's a misunderstanding to think that meditation practice is all about the mind. It is, but it isn't. It's very much an embodied practice. At least that's my opinion of it right now. Mhm. Thank you for that. So thanks for those comments. We still have a few minutes left if anybody else has a comment or question. And maybe I'd be curious to hear if, for those of you who were able to tune into your fear, did you and greet it as a friend, were you able to sense that viscerally or physically in your body? Not the fear itself, but the act of greeting the fear as a friend. So Bibiana asks, how to know if fear is an intuition or need to protect yourself? Yes, I feel the fear in her heart, or in my heart. That's a great question. How to know if fear is an intuition or need to protect yourself? I think it's both, but I think the challenge becomes to identify if we're in true danger. Because I think sometimes we just know something is off, quote unquote. Like, we're walking down a street, it's at night, and it's a street we're very familiar with. And then suddenly it's like our senses are more alert. And so I like to think that that is an intuitive reaction to there may be fear around, and that you may need to protect yourself or be on a little bit more alert mode. But because we cultivated this capacity to feel fear when we were running away from tigers and lions, which is not necessarily the case right now, it becomes a little harder to sense into what is fear because we are truly in danger, and what is fear because our mind is reacting to external circumstances like stress, like emails or something like that, or traffic, or I don't know. And I think it's our mindfulness practice really helps us see clearly. And I like to do that with prompting questions, because sometimes when fear is strong, it's hard for me to access clear seeing, because the fear is tensing up my body and is also limiting my view, which is natural reactions or visceral reactions to fear. And so as a result, I'll tend to say, still in my kind of tight state, I might ask myself, what is true for me right now? And I try to look around and see, like, what is it that I'm fearing? And is it true? So I look around. Sometimes it's anxiety arising based on ruminating thoughts and external circumstances, like reading too much news. And so it's like, okay, I've been in my home. I am not in danger right now. And so from there, it's like the suffering has demanded my attention. And now what do I do next? Okay, so there is no immediate fear. So maybe I need to reassess and not check news after 7:30 p.m. or something, which is our house rule. So, one of our house rules that we're trying to implement is the brushing the teeth limit. So, not after we brush our teeth and not before we brush our teeth in the morning. Do we check news? And so we eat dinner early, so we do that early, so we don't check news past 7:30 ish. So I don't know if that helps, but that's just my initial impressions, and perhaps I'll have different opinions of it as I continue to be with my fear and as I think of your question more. So we are nearing the end. We just have a couple minutes left. And I just want to give you some information that a lot of you are already familiar with. But these online YouTube streams, live streams are offered. Yeah, you're welcome, Viviana. Are offered on behalf of True North Insight, a nonprofit organization from which most of our revenue, in air quotes, to pay the expenses of running the organization come from retreats of which we've canceled the next few at least. So if you feel called to support True North Insight, the link will be below or is in the description, as well as I offer these teachings freely. So if you feel called to donate, please do so, again, in the link below. Otherwise, stay safe. I hope your loved ones are also staying safe, and enjoy the days as best you can, or be present for when there are moments of ease or relief of any fear or anxiety. And feel free to tune into the many online or online practices that True North is offering. All right, friends. Bye. Thank you. Feel free to pop in and say bye like a few of you already are. And so... Thank you, Suzanne, Espinder, Veronique, Bibiana, Marie-Sylvie. Thank you, friends, Elena. All right. Good night. Sleep well.